right. Thank you so much, Richard. And thank you all for coming. I know it is the end of Toy Fair, and a great time to compare notes and to talk about what we've seen and what we'll probably be talking about for many months to come this year. It's amazing how much product is debuted here and how you can really tell, at least on the consumer side, where play could be going over the next many months. And we're very fortunate today to have a great panel of industry inside experts who all have their own unique take on the show. And I'll just say by name, introduce one at a time. Ginny Goodmanson, if you could tell a little bit about yourself first.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad you stayed. Thank you. So I am the Kid Tech columnist for USA Today and the Gannett newspapers. And I also work with a group called Common Sense Media, which is a nonprofit group that reviews children's media. And I'm a new author of a For Dummies book, and I happen to just have written the book called iPad Apps for Kids. So my focus at this show is pretty much the kid tech stuff. That said, I also sit on numerous nominating committees for Toys of the Year, so I do go through a wide range of toys.
Great. Thanks. Thanks, Jenny. And next to Jenny is Renee Rice, a toy industry expert and analyst. Want to tell a little bit about some of the things you're doing and your experience?
I cover the entire toy industry, so tech toys are one component of that. There's also play intelligence and products that help with STEAM and other types of robotics and things. And there's also trends that aren't tied to technology, but that's not the focus of this conference. But there are many, many trends that are out there in the industry. So I cover all of the categories of toys. And I am a keynote speaker, a journalist for Toy Insider, Toy Book, and work with Robin, also with Consumer Electronics Show. And, I've been in the industry for 30 years, and so there's cycles about everything. But right now, there's a lot of people who are interested in technology, and there's some people who are also tech-nos. They're trying to say, take some of that technology away from my kids, and let's just have some non-screen time for a while and different things. So, I see both sides of the picture, and I think we all do. And we all share a common, goal of getting the best stuff out there for those special childhood minutes.
And Renee is also has a global perspective, coming back from the German Toy Fair before coming to this Toy Fair, as many people who go to Toy Fair industry events do. And next up is Robin Raskin with a quite lengthy list of activities.
Really short, because otherwise I'll sound even older than I am. But I started writing. I was the editor of PC Magazine. And then I launched Family PC in the early 90s when I saw what was happening with technology and families. It was a joint venture between Disney and Ziff Davis, which was bizarre enough in itself. And then I worked at Yahoo. And afterwards I noticed that, I'd like to say on my Facebook page, it says, when your Rolodex is better than your writing, you change industry. So I now work with the Consumer Electronics Show. And my vision for them was to take small companies and aggregate them into lifestyle groups so that you could get what the big Intels and Microsofts about by sharing space. So you get press conferences and parties. So I not only do Kids at Play, which I love dearly, and Mommy Tech, but I do Silver Summit, which is for boomers, sports and fitness tech, digital health tech, higher ed tech. And I feel really honored and privileged that I can look across the industries because the patterns are very similar. Whether you're talking about, actually most similar between kids and old people. I mean, it's a full circle thing, and there are opportunities for you in this room to cross-pollinate, if you will. And so that's what I enjoy doing. So I like to think of Toy Fair as my most fun show to go to, and CES, I work really hard, but it's the mecca of where all things come together. This year, for the first time, we did a high-tech fashion show of wearable technology, and it was mind-blowing. Young designers doing amazing things. Fashion week should be ashamed that they're not up on it. But, so that's that.
Great. Well, thanks, Robin. And just to add a little bit to Richard's opening, this is, I think, maybe, I can't remember, it's either my 13th or 14th Toy Fair, but I usually go to also a lot of educational conferences and CES. I look at the consumer side, I look at the education side, and try to triangulate in what are some things to figure out for better engagement with technology products and kids of different age groups. But here today, it's funny, the world of children and technology is so much larger than just Toy Fair, and also I think develops in very different ways in other industries, technology for kids compared to Toy Fair. And, so while we will touch on things within Toy Fair, we'll probably also touch on apps. We'll probably reference a few things that may have come up at the consumer trade shows. Who knows, maybe Kidscreen or whatnot over the last couple of weeks. And the hard part is just figuring out, well, where to begin, because it's like, do we start talking about kids? Do we start talking about preschool? What do we talk about, battery life and flying objects? And there are so many different ways we could start. And maybe just as a starting point, we could talk about every year there's lots of flying things.
There are.
And some of them you could see on the show floor, and other things were shown behind closed doors. However, can you talk about a flying thing that really struck you?
Well, there's a couple of flying things that I saw that struck me. One, especially for girls by Spin Master, was the Flutterbees. They're little fairies that have a little base with batteries, but once you take it off the base, your hand becomes the motion that moves the fairy around the room. So you can just touch it and it'll float up there, and then you can grab it again, and it's just very magical, I think, for little girls, and the technology is built into it, so the batteries are very lightweight now.
Quite a charming product.
It's very charming.
Yeah.
And then for boys, I mean, there's helicopters, there's all kinds of devices with cameras on them, without cameras on them, there's vehicles that are activated by your iPhone or your iPad as the remote, which actually makes it less expensive for the manufacturer to come up with a product if they're selling it to an audience that already has some kind of a device to use as the remote, because then they don't have to include the remote. So that's just one thing. So let's hear from some other folks as well. But there's a whole range of flying objects out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the differences you saw literally range from $20 to over $100, to just under $200. Some used your wrist to do the stun tricks, which I thought was a really cool, new, novel thing. I think as a moms have, I think, more of a problem with flying toys. Scott knows how I feel about those flying fish. I've watched more helium stuck in fans and destroyed really quickly.
But they were so cool.
They were really cool when they first came out.
This may be my New York background, and you can't fly anything for more than a foot without hitting something and smashing it. So I think it's, the drones with the, what do they call them, the bases that are, the quadcopters are really important as a mom.
And the quadcopters were really stable compared to most flying things that you see here this year. Like they're always very wobbly and running into things. And with the remote controls, I was amazed at how much accuracy there was in directing it to a location and not having it bump into anything.
There was also a very cool Neurospike came out with a brainwave activated helicopter. That you're wearing a brainwave thing, and you get your concentration level going so that you can fly this thing. And if you don't keep your concentration level, it falls. If you keep your concentration level, then it flies around. I mean, that was out there. It was really cool. We saw that both at the Computer Electronics or CES show and here.
Yeah, and there'll probably be, I imagine we'll hear a lot more about NeuroSky in the years ahead. I mean, these guys aren't going away.
Yeah, they developed the original toys that were done a couple years ago by Mattel and Uncle Milton, also the Skyforce trainer and
where you had to concentrate, you had a ball, and you were trying to lift the ball by concentrating, and then you'd have to make it move through an obstacle course.
So the brainwave technology is kind of cool stuff.
Another company actually, I think it's called Pulse, had a game where you wore a transformer set around your head, and as you played, you put a card in, and it said your challenge basically is to hold your breath for 3 minutes or lower your heart rate by 10 beats, and you did it with all this brain headset and mind control. So I think you're going to see tons of, you would never think as digital being used to be less stressful, but I think you will. The sleeping turtle. What's Starry Turtle? Is the other one that puts your children to sleep by playing
Cloud
MP3
Bee,
music
Tranquil Turtle.
through
Tranquil
Bluetooth
Turtle.
and putting sky and constellations and ocean scenes on the ceiling. But you can also program it a bedtime story now and through Bluetooth just have it ring.
Mm-hmm.
And then the message you all really want to put in, like, kid, do not get up until the sun gets up.
Did you guys see many programmable toys out on the floor? Can you think of some?
Well, I saw one, I mean, I think there's a lot of toys out there that are trying to involve the child in the programming of how it works.
Mm-hmm.
One that comes to mind right away is there's a robot toy that is basically using an iPhone or a iPod Touch or an Android phone, and it has a face on it, but you can actually program it the way that the old logo kind of thing was. It's a very simple process, and it's called
Roomba.
Roomba, thank
Roomba.
you.
By Robotics, I think it is.
Yeah.
Remotive.
Oh,
Yeah.
Remotive. I always get that wrong.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry.
Yes.
Remotive.
And I thought that was very interesting. Again, the problem when you're dealing with that kind of a toy is that it's so expensive. I think it was in the $150 range.
It was a
So,
little pricey. And you
again,
needed 2 iPhones to make it work,
well,
or
you
2.
could do it with just one.
Yeah,
But
But
it,
you can use it as a babysitter too. Like, so when you call it up from your iPhone at work, your face shows up, so you can say hi to the kids, the dog, the husband, get dinner on the table. So it actually, to me, this idea of toys that can be multi-purpose are kind of intriguing. I mean, it can really roam around your house looking for intruders.
Right, and then WowWee has one called Robo-Me, which also you can personalize and customize the face, and it'll speak to you. There's speech recognition in it. So all of these different technologies, speech recognition, touch, light sensors, motion sensors, these are what make products magical for kids, but they're being able to be incorporated into toys in smaller and smaller, and also lower and lower price because they're more readily available.
Yeah, and the one that's like Roomba, how many saw Cubelets? Cubelets are little, like, smart robotic cubes with different functionality in them. Some are sensor cameras, some are forward motion, some are voice things, so you can
Light
build
sensitive.
your own
yeah,
robot
light sensitive.
pretty easily with basic building blocks, and you'd be amazed. And it's actually, it can get really complicated. Just, you say to yourself, well, give me the simplest thing to do. I just want this guy to move and say, when somebody comes in the room. And it turns out to be a complicated problem kids really have to think through. So it was really exciting for me to see the sort of Dr. Science of the future.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you notice this with many of the robotic toys, is that you can program them, and there's usually a site or something online where you can share what you program. Like, there's a common theme, I think, in a lot of the technology products, that one of your own creations, not unlike Minecraft or Roblox, in the virtual worlds where you can build things and share, that you can do that in the tech toy space as well.
Physical toy. The Mindstorms, Lego Mindstorms just came out with their 3rd version, so it's Mindstorms EV3, and it's for kids 10 and up, but you get programmable, directions. You get a programmable smart brick. It's called an intelligent brick. They have sound sensors and sensomotors in there, and all kinds of technology. And actually, the community that built the first Mindstorms 15 years ago, Lego came out with 5 different, ways that you can build this robot in the box. But there's 12 other ways you can build it that they're giving you online, that the community of Mindstorms, fans came up with, that they wanted to share to help kids, to encourage them to do this. And there's even leagues where the kids build these, then they go to competition and they compete against other kids that are doing it. So it's a way to take robotics to that level of hands-on experience. That's what I love about many of these new products, is it gives kids that hands-on trial and error. How does it work? It's not just read the book, take a test, and pass or fail. They pass or fail by what they learn.
Right, it involves the experimentation,
Yes.
which is the key to a lot of learning for kids, is that if you can get them where they're sitting there and they're having to experiment and fail, it's a really good thing, because then they have to think about it in a different way and come at it again. Again, the only thing, I will comment, is that so many of these robotic things are so expensive, and so it becomes a difficulty to overcome that, to be able to bring that into a home. So sometimes it's got to be an after-school club or something like that.
They do have lower price versions in their educational brand that they sell to schools and they use in school programs.
Exactly.
So,
and actually, I think you're going to see more of that. So I'm a really big believer, and if you're not from New York and you have some time, go down to Make a Box store and see what they're doing. So you don't have to own a 3D printer, but you can walk in and make some kit stuff, or you can make some of your own stuff. You can share things, and you're starting to see, you know, when you used to go in and paint your pottery in the stores, I think you are going to see pop-up shops for kids where they can experience stuff. I'm going to do this. I'm wearing these glitter stars down my neck. I would have never thought to buy glitter stars in a million years, but because I got to experience it, in fact, I didn't know it lasted 7 days until after I did it. But this idea of experiencing is something that's really lacking from our retail environments. And if you go to Japan, you know, it's much more hands-on with the toy, and hands-on drives sales, especially with more expensive toys. And so I think the toy industry is going to have to learn to adapt, and the first place will be public play spaces. And I'm really excited if anybody wants to do a new business.
We've seen some evidence overseas of public play spaces starting to take off, and it's kind of a strange thing to think about here in the States.
Well, like Chuck E. Cheese, new version.
And it also brings generations together, which is a good thing, because the older generation has parents and grandparents have the money to actually buy the products, but it gives them an opportunity to bridge over, you know, where kids are learning something new, but the parents and grandparents may be also learning new about some digital component, and then they can give the experience of how to do different things with younger kids. So the whole experiential piece is a new trend that's coming out, and some of these electronic toys are the way that they're bridging that.
So,
games,
let me change the topic just a little bit, because there's so much we can cover, and I see, you know, we could take in a direction of low-cost technology, or one of the things I'm wondering about, you know, what kind of girl tech did you see that you liked? Well, okay, there's what you saw and then what you liked.
And can it be not tech? Because I saw something really exciting that I really liked. I think we're trying to crack this nut about STEM and getting girls into the STEM stuff, you know, the science, the technology, the math, that kind of engineering. And so I saw something called Goldie Blocks. And so let me if you didn't hear about this one, it just really tickled me because I think it had such a brilliant idea. It's not tech. It's more like, you know, a peg-type block that you're putting onto a grid that you're going to build things. But the key was the concept behind how do you engage girls into learning engineering. And this founder has discovered through some research, she's a Stanford engineering grad, that girls think about engineering in a different way, so you have to talk their language. And so what she has done is she's combined these blocks and the reason to do them with very engaging stories. So if you were to ask a girl to build a conveyor belt, she'd kind of look at you and go, but she says, but what you need to do to finish this story is you need to build something to get the little puppy to the second story. Ah, okay, now we know why we're going to now we have a reason to do something, right? And so it was very interesting to me to discover that that was a language barrier. You need to put it into a world that's relevant to little girl play. And I think the second thing on that one is, you know, the Lego Friends. For a long time, Legos was pretty much a boy toy. And so now we have this building and designing and that kind of stuff with a play set that appeals to girls.
And actually Lego did some research, and they actually found that because the Lego Friends last year, there were triple the amount of girls that played with building blocks last year because the Lego Friends kind of opened up a door that they felt was relevant to their world. So, I mean, it was a great opportunity.
Right. And the other interesting phenomena, probably stemming from Hunger Games, came from Hasbro, and you have these pink archery shooters you put your iPad in, you get a little augmented reality and a little
Nerf, it's called Nerf Rebel.
Rebels.
Yeah.
And, you know, very
mixed feeling. Very happy girls can get some eye-hand coordination and travel experience too, and also at the same time, you know, it's a very weird climate for me to have her be introducing a set of girl weapons. I think that idea of context, you know, I always say with girl weapons, if you just put your ex-boyfriend or your mother when you're mad at her, you know, that target becomes so much more meaningful to a girl than just a target for target's sake, because girls love the context of a story, to your point about the Goldilocks, which are brilliant.
It was brilliant. It was a brilliant idea, and the timing was great. I mean, it was long overdue.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I wonder if you had a chance. Not everybody, I'm sure, got a chance to walk through the Mattel showroom, but the vanity and the Barbie digital stuff. Does anyone want to comment on it?
Yeah, I'll comment on the vanity. Was actually, I think, my take was that it was interesting. So I'm going to be a positive on that one. There was a lot of the stuff that I saw that I actually didn't like the use of technology on. But this one I did, because little girl play about makeup is something that happens frequently, particularly with moms around. And so this is a iPad, use of the iPad, and instead of actually putting on makeup by simply picking up the wand and putting it, approaching your face in the right spot, then your image through the iPad, what you're looking at, has the makeup on. So you can have, you know, green lipstick on, and then it moves with you as you move around, so that's the video of the iPad working. And so I thought that was actually a pretty cool use of trying to do a play pattern that is very difficult when you've got the pots of makeup all over the place and making a big mess. So.
Yeah, and it actually uses, you know, facial recognition technology. So once you've made up your face, you can step out and have your girlfriend step in, and the makeup that you put on you will then match with facial recognition and be in the right place for her eyes and her mouth and her hair and everything.
Yeah, that one was actually pretty cool.
And it uses the camera function too, which is, you know, it kind of takes that, you know,
What you guys
makeup.
think of the LED painting Barbie?
I thought it was okay. I thought it was interesting. Again, it reminded me what you talked about in terms of the fashion with the, you know, and we saw that at the Grammys. We saw some of the costumes were, you know, changing like stuff. So
where
this
her
again
body becomes the palette for your
and you
digital
can use,
drawings.
You can use a wand, and it changes the LED lights that are, so you can constantly be changing a costume. Is what it is.
It was pretty neat, and maybe a good jumping off point here is. It feels like the toy industry is caught in a period, well, for the last couple of years anyway, struggling of how to deal with tablets and apps and what their response is. And one of the common things, and though one of the few ones this Vanity did well, but most can't live up to, is that it's an accessory. And so when we were at CES, the big thing was accessories to your phone, to your tablet. And here there was lots of accessories to the gameplay, whether it fit the play pattern or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of companies are feeling the need to be in that space and maybe haven't come up with an elegant solution yet. There's still some clumsy solutions for augmented reality and stuff, but there are some nice solutions too that you know, for example, there's a company called Cartamundi that was introduced in the Nuremberg Fair, and they actually have cards that you have your iPad, and they're like trading cards kind of thing, and you place them on the iPad, and it brings up a plant, a hybrid plant. Then you place a second one on, and you get a second plant. And then it, right before your eyes, takes those two plants of seed and comes up with this elegant, you know, great creation out of the two different things you combine. And then you can touch the card, and it actually is scented. So it smells like the plant that you just made. So it's just adding a different layer of interactivity. It's the first time I've heard scent being added, so that was kind of fun.
Yeah, the tablet market, first of all, the forecast for the U.S. this year is 114 million tablets will be sold. So if you capture just the teeniest percent of this market, you're doing well. So I think you're going to see, I know there are about, what, 25 kids' tablets now with few differentiators, but I was talking to one of the tablet guys, and they told me in focus groups what they wanted in this order was parental controls, learning content, and then videos, YouTube and Netflix.
And it turned out in real life, when they bought the tablet, that parental controls Netflix and Google, and forget about the learning content. It wasn't anything that the kids really used that much. So so that is, but I think there's a lot of opportunity. And I think what you're going to see this year is sort of phase 2 of tablets marrying content, because it's silly not to. And it's going to be great for app developers to align themselves. I think on the app side, you're going to see aggregate. Parents don't want to go through the Apple Store anymore. They just want like a station, I believe in, like PBS, good for my kid, I'll sign up. Just, you pick the brands. I think you're going to see a lot of models being tried that way. The other thing I think the industry doesn't even understand yet, the toy industry, that the rest of the technology industry understands, is big data. And I know that there are COPPA laws, and I know there are things that you cannot collect, but imagine knowing what a kid likes and doesn't like. Or imagine knowing that they get tripped up on learning fractions and you need a different way to present it. Or that it's them that gets tripped up, or is it the class that gets tripped up because of the teacher, or is it the district? Well, play patterns are the same kind of thing, and I think whether it's obesity control or raising healthier kids through body wearable media and big data is going to be next year. We'll talk again, and I think you're going to see it all happening.
So there's another good segue there. One of the things I wonder, I'd ask you, whether at Toy Fair specifically, in years past there's been a lot of outdoor play, outdoor technology, and I don't think I saw any this year here, but at CES there was tons of it. Right? I mean, did you see any outdoor play tech here this year?
The Twister people.
Oh, Twister Rave and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, some of the computer electronic companies or companies that are in that space are feeling that that is their realm, and they feel like they're not playing in the toy space, and they want to be seen as playing in the tech space. So some of them have made a conscious decision not to show at Toy Fair, they're showing at technology fairs. So some of that is what's happening for some of these companies. Not all of them, because to me they're missing a mark by not going to a market that would be purchasing their products. But, when you have limited dollars and where you're going to spend them, right now some of those companies are choosing. I spoke to at least 6 companies at CES that chose to show at CES. They had to pick one or the other because they're so close together. So that's one of the things that's happening.
But there were some great tricked-down bicycles. Like the one with the tire, what's the name of it? They used to be a Javits. It was John Ardale's company.
Big wheel?
It's a
Oh, with the
tire
lights
that
inside?
turns into 16 patterns as you drive.
Yeah.
Yes, and then there's the one that you mount on your bike, and it makes noises like trucks and taxi cabs, and you can scare everybody in the bike lanes. And so I think there actually are some accessories to cycles. But what I didn't see and I expected to see was electric bikes for kids, sort of more tech mixes. I did see some, nice new, there were a lot of, did everybody notice there were so many of those jungle lines? What do you call them?
Zip lines?
Not zip
That you walk on, like a
That you walk on.
balancing.
Oh, yeah.
Trampoline, not trampoline.
Well, like a high wire
trapeze
kind of
high
thing.
wire thing,
Yeah.
And hula hoops. I mean, you did see traditional outdoor play, but not as much mixture of technology. Remember when Jackson used to have the baseball and the golf?
Yeah.
No.
digital?
And Wild Planet had
Yeah.
the hide and seek
Yeah.
pieces, little animal, I forget, Animal Scramble, I think it
We
was.
should find out who's in this audience. Like,
That's a good question. How many people here are in the toy industry? Just a show of hands? Okay, so maybe half? And how many are in software or technology? And maybe the other half.
And how many are retailers?
Okay.
How many are manufacturers?
Good.
how many thought it was the dog show and they're in the wrong place?
Any virtual world people in the audience? 2? Okay. Great. So let me see. Where's another good direction to take this? So what do you think are going to be the toy products we're going to be talking about most this year? Let's just say, except for Skylanders.
Oh, okay.
Because Skylanders is going to be talked about a lot.
Yeah, but I think, let's riff off of that a little bit.
Okay.
So if you don't know what Skylanders is, it's a a mixture of video game and toy. So it was a big blockbuster video game last year for kids, and it's because it comes with this portal, and you put a physical toy on the portal, and then the toy appears in the video game. But that's cool in and of itself. But what's really cool is that the toy keeps a memory of what your skill sets are as you improve in the game. And then when you take that toy and you go to your friend Johnny's house down the street, and he has a different system, let's say you're playing on Wii and he's playing on Xbox 360, you plop your toy down on his portal and your toy with all its abilities shows up in his game. That's cool. But they're going to have some competition this year.
Oh, yeah.
So behind closed doors at Toy Fair, Disney showed for the first time their Infinity game. Same concept. It has a similar, it's got different technology involved, but it's the same play pattern in the sense that you're taking a physical toy and you're introducing it into a world in which you then can save data and move it around. Along that line, Scott, there was actually something really exciting in that Disney Infinity game, and that is that it has two modes. It has an adventure thing, but it also has a big, huge sandbox area where you can put Jack Sparrow and Sleeping Beauty together, and you can create a world that they want to play in. I'm not sure how that works, but in any case, the other part of it was that in that world of sandbox, they have what they call logic blocks, and this was, again, coming back to this concept of programming. And so kids are going to be learning to program games using the characters, and they can create the games and set it up by using these logic blocks. I loved it. That part of it was very, very cool.
And what the advantage they have is, like Skylanders had their game in advance before they came out with the characters. The Disney worlds. They're starting with Pirates of the Caribbean, Monsters University, and The Incredibles. But just imagine when they get to the point where Star Wars, Disney princesses, Mickey and Minnie are going to be available.
Yeah.
So they can play in their own world, but then you can take them like in a toy box, like a kid would
and
have,
create
their
new
Barbie
games.
and all those things together. They can play with any character that's, in that Disney world.
So if I had to characterize Toy Fair this year, mashups of physical and real, of every character known to mankind, meeting each other in some cyberspace, and also I feel like it was a pretty safe toy fair. I feel like nobody really went out on a limb and introduced some crazy new technology at a really high price point that was going to change. There were years that kids' projectors were there and night vision goggles.
Well, and I thought last year was all about AR. There was a lot of augmented reality. There was some of that again this year, but
not as
there
much.
was not as much, and there wasn't anything in my mind that was like really using something brand new that I had never seen. It was simply refining things that have been sort of introduced.
AR and kids is, the magic of AR is when it knows where you are and it can give you extra information about your surroundings, and that's not COPPA compliant, and it's sad because here you have this expensive investing iPad for your kid and you can't use half the stuff in it, basically the location stuff, because it's a violation, so that's a problem.
One thing that I did see though was QR codes now being used in product development and in products. Instead of it just being on packaging to show a TV commercial or something, you can actually use it in the game. Like there was a Funniest Home Videos game.
Yes.
And the idea was that you could, you go around the board and then you hit a certain spot, but you can actually use your smartphone to play a clip from a Funniest Home Video. And that really is a nice intergenerational play because it brings in, the grandparents who love it. It's been around for 22 years every Sunday night, 5 million viewers. But they don't know how to use the technology to access that. The kids are like, oh, well, let's play with this. We always watch it with Grandma, Grandpa, or Mom and Dad on TV, but let me show you how to use this, Mom and Dad. And they get to feel like they're the expert at using the technology. So it's actually being incorporated into that, into road play sets for kids. Take a Moto by Innovation First, and
even the Hexbugs had
that is
the
Hexbugs company called Innovation First has their Take a Moto racetrack, or cars and cities, and when they go over certain spots, it reads different things. So
they're
barcode
using scan
scanners
codes.
and stuff. but yeah.
And Robin's got a neat little
Yeah, I've got my scan them all.
discussion
The
piece there.
animals, yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
there
I was
is
gonna bring that up.
one scan code that just gets you in, and actually I learned something from them, which was that kids would go take pictures of scan codes like this online and then not buy the thing and then go home and get in. So the one to get into the system is here, and then the thing that gets you new games all the time, extra points, skipping levels, is here. And that's what you can use over and over again. So you actually, it's not like the Webkins where it's a one-time I've done it, and it's a constant, here's my scan thing.
Plus, they set the play up so that the more times you scan,
Yes.
so that they actually encourage the use of the animal. The more times you scan, the more points
That's
you
right.
get, and then the points turn into extra things that give you extra powers in the games and stuff. So it was a clever play pattern.
Plus,
Yes.
the company it's made by is called Wicked Cool Toys, so it's kind of a great name for that.
Well, it is kind of funny too. Maybe it's the year of QR codes too, because I noticed in publishing at another event we went to, Dust for Magic, we were seeing that QR codes were being entered in physical books to get to audiobooks or to some enhanced
Yeah.
content in an app.
I actually think though that the toy industry is a little behind the tech industry there.
Yeah.
So toy industry is using QR codes. Tech industry is using like embedded graphics with the QR codes in them, which are
Raspberry codes,
way
yeah.
much cooler.
Sophisticated.
And so you can actually, and mind meld. I mean, there's a whole bunch that are, so QR codes are kind of passe in the tech industry, but not in the toy industry. And that's a difference. And there's convergence going on, but the convergence hasn't happened as much as it should.
Yeah.
Well, and another one was the Ravensburger puzzles. They
Yeah.
had that as well. And so here you have the physical toy of putting together a 1,000-piece puzzle. And if it's the one, there were several different ones, but the one that I was looking at was New York City's Times Square. And you could actually scan it, and then you could take a picture of yourself and put yourself up on the billboard. And that was kind of a cool thing. So you had the puzzle aspect, but they also did stuff related to like the African safari, and you could do animals and learn facts and that kind of stuff. So.
Gosh, so I'm need to just I'm not quite sure how much time. How are we doing on time?
I don't know, I've got, it's about a quarter to.
I've got 22.
You got 22?
Yeah.
Okay. Why don't, are there some questions from the audience about technology or products you've seen or anything you want to share yourself? Yes, why don't we start right here?
There's a dog that hasn't barked much at this conference to me. And actually, the only mention I've heard of it at all was from Robin 2 minutes ago. And that is, earlier we were talking a lot about the integration of the physical and the virtual. What effect and what do you see the path for technologies like 3D printing, or even before we get to that? I mean, right now, I can go out for $300 or so and buy a cutter, which can do all kinds of craft projects and stuff on
Yeah.
the computer. And I've seen no mention of this technology.
It's funny. We were just talking earlier in regard to the dogs that don't bark. Where are the 3D printers here at Toy Fair?
Yeah,
They're
they
not
are.
here.
Well, I mean, you had the Crayola booth actually had, you could make your
Make your
own
own mold.
car,
Yeah.
your
Oh,
own
well,
cars.
no, that was and also Mattel had an injection molded
Yeah,
car.
they did. So there was a
Um,
little bit of, design your own stuff kind of thing, but not the 3D printers.
No.
Right, but he's so right. This designing your own stuff has not come into the tech age as much as it should. And if any of you have gone to maker fairs, they're in Queens here in the fall, or in San Francisco in June, I think. But you can see intergenerational makers, and makers of everything from recycled dresses out of garbage to the highest tech toys. And I think that the toy industry needs to cultivate this spirit, because we've raised
Yep.
kids who just are taught to play with things.
It's why don't we get a few more questions? But it's an excellent point. If you think about it, the toy industry, this is the 110th anniversary. 3D printers, 3 years, 4 years.
Right,
and
why couldn't
thinking
you have
differently.
one in Toys R
Yeah.
Us and make your own toy while you're there?
Yes.
Hello.
Go right ahead.
Follow up on that question, because we've been tossing the idea back and forth.
Sure.
How am I CPSIA compliant if I'm making the toy in the store? Has anyone thought about
Oh, that's a great
that
question.
aspect of it? Because
That's a great question. How could you know if you get really heavily into 3D printing that you're compliant with many of the rules
Well,
and
but you-
regulations of the toy
but
industry?
But the rules and regulations apply to sellers,
Well, yeah.
not to an individual user.
True.
So you're going to
No, but
bypass
kids are
it.
selling to kids online. I
Yeah.
mean, you are opening
Yeah.
up. It's a typical case of regulatory stuff hanging way behind what's happening. It's why is every 10-year-old on Facebook, no matter what anybody thinks? Because parents, vote with what they like, and regulation can't keep up. It's why patents have problems, and I think it's always going to be like that. And I wouldn't want to be the first lawsuit
Yeah.
where somebody. But look at, you have Etsy doing crafts and doing really well, selling from person to person. So I think the whole model is changing.
But they're all non-compliant.
I know.
So if anyone figures out how much my house is worth, they sue me.
You incorporate.
No. It's a really serious problem.
It is,
And
yeah.
somebody will be challenged, and but it's not atypical for this to happen in every industry.
So let me get to another.
The medical devices, by the way they get around it is they say that they are giving information but not making a diagnosis. And like, for example, in concussion, they have these concussion things that you can wear for kids play football or basketball, and it will tell you the velocity and the torque that they were hit with, but it will not tell you your kid had a concussion. And that's a call that your coach makes.
Let me get to another
So
question.
you don't need FDA regulation.
Yes, the question right over there.
Yeah, you started to talk about the Mattel showroom
Yep.
and the art community. I'd like to hear your feedback on the preschool and toddler toys, the
The
fortress and the
like the toddler tables and the barnyard things that had the tablets in it.
things. There's quite a lot of templates there.
Someone want to share?
Sure. Well, go ahead.
Well, I think it's
I'll
just
add it.
Fisher-Price trying to bring, they know that toddlers are playing on these devices. They know that parents are giving these devices to kids to play with apps. So they said, well, why not take it and bring a physical product into it too to help the retailers to have products that go with it. I think some of the solutions are elegant and work really well. I like the Fortress. I think there's a lot of play value in the Fortress, both the vertical and the horizontal play. Some of the other ones, they're getting there. So, but they're basically coming into a space that, there hasn't been a lot of development between physical product and digital product in the preschool area. So Fisher-Price being, one of the premier toy manufacturers in that space said we need to come out with something there. And they do have some augmented reality in there, which will be magical for kids that create and play cases where kids are learning their ABCs, and once they get A right, the apple gets eaten, or if it's a B, the butterfly flies away. So they get a reward for doing it. And so that kind of gamification piece of it is kind of nice in actuality.
Well, I'll take the other side of that. I'm a big believer that screens don't belong in front of kids before age 2, and so when you start putting screens into these toys that keeps them from looking at physical objects, I have trouble with that, and we're starting to see that. We saw the new InnoTab 2 baby is they're trying to do baby screens, and my feeling is kids that age need to look at real faces. They don't need to look at screens. And so I'm sort of against when you start going below age 2. I have trouble with that. So, and the American Academy of Pediatrics agrees with me. So,
Well, they agree so long as the material is linear and passive, but not interactive, only because the jury is still out on that.
exactly.
Yeah.
But some of this was passive. The
Yes,
use was
true,
passive, and
true.
so when it was passive, I was having trouble with
Yeah.
that.
I saw a lot of, I saw VTech doing it, and Mattel. It's not just Fisher-Price.
Right.
There
It's
are a
across
lot
the
of them
board.
doing it. They're all, and part of me is wondering, they're just throwing things out there to see what sticks.
Well, and obviously, really kids' favorite play person or play toy is their parent. They want their parent to play with them. They want to be there engaging, but parents don't always have that opportunity to be right with their kids every single time. So,
Right.
There's pros and cons both ways.
So why don't we take just one last question, and Ginny has some books to give away, if you'd like to stick around for that. But sadly, we are drawing to a close, and why don't we give the last question to the fellow in the back?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm wondering if you talk a little bit
age compression and U.S. versus international. Two really easy questions that we should be able to wrap up in 30 seconds.
Age compression, kids really are getting more of an opportunity to play with digital devices at an earlier age, depending on their parents and their siblings and their environment. If they're given the opportunity to play with it, they love playing with touch screens. It's very intuitive for them. In Europe, for example, in Germany, they prefer that children under the age of 4 do not have any toys that have sound in them or technology, and they like wooden toys. But they know that the younger parents are allowing that and are doing that. In other countries like the UK, Australia, Canada, US, they're very comfortable putting these devices in children's hands and saying, this is a digital world. They're going to continue to grow, and digital it's always been in their home. They're always going to have it. It's going to continue to advance at an alarmingly fast speed. So, this is just a way to get them up to speed now and continue throughout their life. So this is from points of view.
And I think, like everything, it's not black and white. You see the good and the bad, the age compression. I went to the one guy, and he said, let me show you my One Direction. I said, oh, you're taking One Direction? I didn't even know it was a band, that had and I went, oh, I'm so glad you've decided. And, this idea of, promiscuous 10-year-olds dancing around to, some of the stuff is I think it takes a village to sort of control that and raise them. On the other hand, you look at an app company like Tokaboka that invites group play on an iPad with touch and invites your friends and your mom to come to your tea party and be in your band is just stunning. So I really think there is age compression, there is age appropriateness. We know accelerometers and tactile movement, and whether it's smell. I think, Maria Montessori would be jumping for joy if she saw what was happening with tablets, but so would be of Skinner. Because Skinner knows that, this extrinsic reward for doing something works. And if you talk to like a Nolan Bushnell and his next project, it's all about the silliest gamification for learning things faster and faster. And one of our good colleagues, Warren Buckleitner, who was here, says about kids, you can't bake a cake faster because you turn the oven up to 800 degrees. And so it's really profound, and we need to think about it as developers and parents and whatever we do, that there's a point where a kid's brain just isn't ready to take this in, and a kid's action shouldn't be like this, and it's an individual parenting thing, I think.
And I think that most of us up here believe in the balance in the toy box concept, that there's a time and a place for certain things, and children need to have certain developmental stages. And if they miss a developmental stage, they miss certain things in their growth and development that'll help them to become a well-balanced adult. So these steps are important. It's very much relying upon the parent and the caregivers, et cetera, and the siblings to just say, hey, let's make sure that they have a wide variety of materials to play with.
Yeah.
Right.
So
in balance.
yes. So we're gonna wrap up here. Thanks for coming. Don't leave just yet, though.
So let me ask
but
a question.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Because I've got 4 books. I just finished writing the book